You are not afraid of death, my beloved. You are afraid of forgetting who you are. Deep within the shrine of your consciousness, you sense that death is not the end. But still, the mind trembles, the heart races, and the ego clings to the body as though it were the eternal home. Why? Because the body shouts and the soul whispers. And in the noise of this world, many forget how to listen for the whisper. When the body begins to fade, and the voice is silenced, and the breath pauses, there arises within man the ancient terror. Will I cease to exist? But I tell you this, what dies was never you. What you are has never been born, and can never be buried. That which you truly are existed before your mother knew your name, and will live beyond the last utterance of it. The soul is not bound by bone or flesh or time, but until you remember that, death remains the unspoken shadow haunting your every joy. Close your eyes for a moment and breathe slowly with me, not as this body, but as the soul who watches the body. Inhale, feel the air rise through the spine like a sun awakening the temple of life. Exhale, and let the body dissolve in the background. There, you have not disappeared. You have become more real. In that stillness is the first proof of your immortality. But this world does not teach you to know yourself that way. It teaches you to identify with the visible, the tangible, the fleeting. It teaches you to measure yourself by age, by productivity, by opinion, and by form. It does not teach you to measure yourself by light, or by love, or by the depth of your calm communion with the infinite. I speak to the one in you who was never born. I speak to the radiant flame, the silent witness, the untouchable essence behind your changing expressions. You are the soul, cloaked in a garment of atoms, walking through this brief play called a lifetime. But the ego whispers, what if this is all there is? The mind doubts what the spirit remembers. This is the cause of your unrest. This is the source of your hidden sorrow. You feel it when a loved one passes, and you look upon the body they once animated, and it lies there, still and foreign, and something in you says, that is not them. That was never them. And in that realization, fleeting but soul-shaking, you remember that what is real cannot die, and what dies was never the reality. Let us not speak of death as an ending. Let us speak of it as a passage, a doorway where the soul simply changes scenery. Just as a candle is extinguished in one room only to be lit in another, so does the soul depart one plane to awaken in another. There is no death for the one who knows God. There is only expansion, like the bird leaving its cage to fly into the endless sky. But for those who do not know, the transition appears as loss, as emptiness, as a silent terror. It is not the absence of life that creates fear. It is the absence of divine memory. That is why I speak now, to restore your remembrance. Breathe again, beloved. Inhale the divine presence that surrounds you at all times. Exhale the illusion that you are alone. Feel how close God is in this breath. The soul is not distant. It is not hidden in a temple beyond the stars. It is the eternal flame burning at the center of your being, and this flame cannot be touched by fire, cannot be drowned by water, cannot be buried by soil. When death comes, it does not snuff this flame. It only removes the lamp. This fear you do not speak of, the fear of vanishing, of being forgotten, of no longer being, is based on the lie that the body is the self. Let that lie dissolve now. Let it melt in the warmth of this truth. You are not a body with a soul. You are a soul, and you have borrowed this body for a time. You do not end with the heartbeat. You do not vanish when the breath pauses. You rise. You remember. You are called home. Let us walk together through that home now. For even after the heart stops beating, the soul is not yet gone. It remains close, listening, watching, hovering at the edge of the veil, waiting to be seen again. This is where our journey begins. This is what happens in the 13 sacred days that follow the body's final breath. Let me tell you now, not in riddles, but in divine simplicity. When the moment of transition comes, when the breath ebbs, the pulse slows, and the eyes dim, what dies is not you. What dies is the name, the face, the form that you borrowed for a season. What dies is the part of you that could be seen and touched, the vehicle which the soul drove through the karmic highways of this incarnation. But the driver, the indwelling life, the unbroken witness, that soul does not die. It only steps out of the vehicle and walks into another chamber of existence. The soul does not fear death. It is the ego, born of illusion, that trembles. The ego is the product of body identification. It knows nothing but form, status, time, and fear. It clings to possessions and resists change. It believes the body is its identity, and thus when the body is threatened, it feels annihilation is near. But the soul, oh, the soul smiles. The soul watches with radiant stillness, knowing this drama was only a play, and its lines now fall silent. The ego weeps at death, but the soul rejoices at reunion. You see, the soul is made in the image of God, not of flesh and bone, but of light and consciousness. Just as the sunbeam cannot be separated from the sun, so the soul can never be severed from spirit. The body may fall away like a leaf in autumn, but the life force within that leaf returns to the root. When the flower of the body wilts, the fragrance of the soul does not vanish. It ascends. Even when the petals decay, the essence remains. I have watched the moment of death in many souls, some who knew and some who did not, and I have seen what remains when the veil lifts. I tell you now from direct knowing, your soul will remain as alive after death as you are in this very moment of listening. Now let us go deeper. The body is composed of matter, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, but it is animated by the prana, the intelligent life energy of God. That prana flows through subtle channels in the spine and nervous system. At the time of death, the life force withdraws from the outer extremities inward, moving through the chakras, the centers of astral perception, and exits through the spiritual eye or another point determined by the soul's evolutionary state. If one has meditated deeply in life, the soul slips easily from the body like a sword from its sheath. But if the soul is still entangled in desire, regret, and attachment, the departure may be slower, like a tangled bird caught in a net of its own making. This is why I tell you, the spine is not just a biological column. It is the altar of the soul, the ladder of ascension, the divine staircase by which your consciousness rises to meet God. The ignorant think death comes from the earth, but the wise know that death comes through the spine, through the breath, through the quiet withdrawal of the life energy into its source. That is why, in deep meditation, we learn to die daily, to practice the conscious withdrawal of prana, to detach from the body, to anchor our identity in the still center behind the breath. The yogi who has tasted this knows there is no fear in death. He has already crossed the threshold in joy and returned with peace. Imagine now, if you will, a lamp whose oil is spent. The light dims and the form disappears. But where has the flame gone? Did it die, or did it return to the great fire from which it came? So it is with your life. You are a spark of the eternal flame. When the body dies, that spark is not extinguished. It returns to the vast, unbounded light of spirit. Even the thoughts you cherish, the dreams you nurture, the memories you cradle, all these are stored in the subtle astral body. When the physical body perishes, this astral form carries the imprints of your mind, emotions, tendencies, and desires. You do not enter a void. You enter a realm where thought is tangible, where your consciousness creates the world you experience. If you lived in fear and greed, you will initially gravitate toward dimmer regions. But if your life was saturated in devotion, love, and service, you will rise to luminous realms of peace and beauty. Death does not change the soul. It only reveals what it has cultivated in secret. So again I say, what actually dies? The garment, the shell, the temporary mask. But what cannot die is the self, the immortal, changeless, radiant self made of God's own joy. You are that self. Repeat after me inwardly, as a breath of remembrance. I am not this body. I am not this mind. I am the immortal soul, sent by God, returned to God, sustained by God. Do not let the funeral bells fool you. They ring for a costume, not for the one who wore it. They toll for the dust, not for the fire. That which you are cannot be touched by death. It is untouched by fire, undimmed by time, and untainted by sorrow. You are the traveler, not the road. You are the light, not the lamp. You are the soul, and that soul is eternal. Breathe now as the soul. Inhale the timeless presence of the infinite. Exhale the illusion of perishing. Feel how nothing in you resists this truth. It is not foreign. It is remembered. You have always known it, and now we move forward, beyond the body, beyond the fear, into the mystery of what unfolds in the 13 sacred days that follow death's call. The journey continues. Now let us lift the veil, slowly, reverently, upon the mystery that few dare to approach with understanding. What happens in the 13 days after the soul leaves the body? Why does this number echo across cultures, whisper through ancient rituals, and stir within the hearts of mourners as though time itself holds its breath? The answer is not superstition, beloved, it is vibration. It is metaphysical law echoing through millennia of spiritual remembrance. When the soul exits the body, it does not immediately ascend into some abstract realm of light. No, there is a subtle twilight between worlds, a luminous dusk where the soul still hovers near the plane it has just departed. In this liminal interval, the soul floats between matter and spirit, memory and release. And in the sacred science of the yogis, we know, it is approximately 13 earth days that this passage lasts. Not by calendar tradition, but by vibratory unfoldment. Let me explain. The physical body is gross matter, but the soul, during life, is not housed only in that dense frame. It is also enmeshed in the astral body, a luminous sheath of energy and thought, bound to the body through countless threads of pranic magnetism. At the moment of physical death, those threads begin to dissolve, but they do not vanish instantly. The ties of attachment, unfinished desire, identity with form, and emotional resonance linger like perfume on a garment just removed. This is why, in the 13 days that follow death, the soul may still sense the presence of loved ones, may visit familiar places, may even hear the thoughts and prayers offered in its memory. It is not a ghost. It is a traveler, passing through the vestibule of liberation or return. In many sacred traditions, Hindu, Buddhist, Taoist, even ancient Jewish and early Christian, this period is honored with prayers, rituals, and watchfulness. Why? Because the soul, newly released from the body, is highly sensitive. It feels everything. It is aware, though not as the waking mind is aware. It moves in a stream of subtle impressions, half-formed thoughts, desires seeking resolution, visions from past and future lives arising like reflections in a rippling pool. These impressions act as magnets. They pull the soul either upward into divine remembrance or downward into rebirth and earthly longing. Yogic science tells us that for 3 days after death, the pranic life force circulates slowly out of the physical body, especially if the soul is untrained or unprepared. Then, over the next 10 days, the soul gradually withdraws from the lower vibratory fields of material attachment. 13 days total, the symbolic cycle of planetary dispersion, a half-moon of the afterlife. These 13 days are not fixed by clock time. They are measured in consciousness. But to the awakened master, they are visible. I have seen them, felt them, spoken with souls as they passed through them. The first days are often filled with confusion if the soul was unprepared. It may not know that the body has died. It may attempt to speak to family members, to touch the form it once animated, to understand why no one responds. This is not a punishment. It is the slow uncoiling of attachment. But if prayers, love, and peaceful thoughts are sent toward that soul, it rises quickly from that fog. That is why your mourning must be still, your grief clean of fear. If you wail with despair, you can entangle the soul with cords of sorrow. But if you sit in silence, speak divine words, chant Aum, or whisper, you are free, you are light, you are loved. You lift that soul like a bird borne upward by the wind of prayer. You may ask, why 13? Why not 7 or 40 or 3? Because in the yogic cosmology, the prana, life energy, completes its full cycle of dissipation in 13 days. During this time, the soul's residual identification with the body and surroundings dissolves. It is the time required for the subtle astral blueprint to disengage from its karmic projection onto the material plane. After these 13 days, the soul begins its ascent toward the realm it has magnetized through its earthly consciousness. Think of it this way. When a stone is thrown into a still lake, the ripples continue long after the stone disappears beneath the surface. The impact is sudden, but the reverberations linger. In the same way, death is the moment of departure, but the soul's vibrations ripple across time and space for days, adjusting, releasing, recalibrating. These are the days when love still reaches, when prayers still touch, when clarity can still be imparted. They are sacred, they are real. And in these 13 days, the soul is not idle. It is reliving, reviewing, responding. It may see flashes of its life, not in judgment, but in awareness. It may feel the weight of words left unspoken, or the lightness of love it gave without regret. It may meet guides, luminous presences, or familiar souls who have gone before. It may see a bridge of light or a field of images, symbols of what awaits if it chooses to rise. And above all, it is given a choice: cling to what was, or ascend into what is. You must understand, beloved, that these days are a gift. They are a final doorway. They are the soul's grace period between earth and eternity. And what you do now, while you are alive, determines how you walk through that doorway. The one who meditates daily, who lives in detachment, who fills their thoughts with divine remembrance, such a one passes easily through these days, as a swan gliding from lake to sky. But the one who clings to form, who lives in fear and doubt, may linger near the earth, reluctant, confused. Let me give you this image. Imagine a beautiful silk scarf floating slowly down from the sky. As it descends, the breeze carries it left and right, slowing its fall. For 13 days, it remains aloft, held by invisible hands. But then, if no upliftment carries it further, it settles. Where it lands depends on the wind it rode, the wind of desire or the wind of devotion. This is why the masters teach us to prepare not for death, but for these 13 days after it. For that is when your soul decides whether it will return or rise. Now close your eyes with me. Inhale deeply. Feel the stillness behind the breath. Exhale, and imagine all your earthly attachments dissolving into light. Feel yourself as the soul, not bound by time, not tethered by fear, and whisper inwardly, I will not be confused. I will not linger. I will rise when the call comes. The 13 days are not a curse. They are a grace. They are the final mirror in which your soul sees its own face and chooses whether to forget it again or to remember forever. Let me take you now into the silent cinema of the soul's perception, what it sees, hears, and feels during those 13 ethereal days. For this is not speculation. I have seen it. I have communed with those who passed through it, and I say to you with the full weight of divine vision, those 13 days are not empty. They are charged with echoes, echoes of sensation, echoes of longing, echoes of identity. The soul feels. Oh yes, it feels deeply, but not as it once did. It feels with clarity, without a tongue, without a body, but with a sense that pierces through the veils of illusion like sunlight through mist. In the first days, the soul often hovers close to the form it once inhabited. It is like an actor who has just exited the stage but still hears the audience murmuring, still listens for the applause that no longer comes. There is a phantom sense of the body, the memory of touch, of taste, of breath. It is as if the soul turns back to glance at a house it lived in for many years, seeing the curtains, the door, the flickering candle in the window. It remembers the pains that once ruled it, the pleasures that once claimed it. It might feel a hand touch its former face, might hear the voices of loved ones saying goodbye, and it pauses, still drawn to that form, unsure if it is truly free. But then, slowly, gently, the soul begins to realize, I am not in that body anymore. There is a subtle shift, a luminous recognition that it was never the body to begin with. This realization may be immediate for the awakened one, but gradual for the worldly soul. The old wounds no longer ache, the eyes no longer blink, the ears no longer hear the way they used to. Yet perception continues, finer, subtler, without the need for gross senses. The soul floats near its home, its family, its favorite places, not out of possession, but out of magnetism. That which it loved, or feared, or desired, it still gravitates toward, until it learns to release. This is why so many rituals across cultures happen in the home. Candles lit, incense offered, prayers whispered. For the soul may still be present, listening, watching, sensing, not through ears and eyes, but through vibration. If you speak love, it feels peace. If you cry in despair, it feels confusion. Your emotions become a bridge or a burden. Remember this, dear one, when you pray for the departed. Let your prayers be wings, not weights. Close your eyes now. Inhale. Picture someone you have loved and lost. Exhale with this thought. You are not gone. You are simply remembering yourself more purely. Send them light now, not in grief, but in recognition. For even if their soul has moved on, your love still reaches them. That is the divine law of consciousness. It is never confined. But beyond the echo of sensation, there is another feeling, deeper, more powerful, the pull of karma. Karma is not a sentence imposed from above. It is the memory of the soul's own choices echoing across lifetimes. And during these 13 days, those karmic impressions rise to the surface. Like a traveler checking a map after a long journey, the soul begins to see the terrain it has crossed and the direction it now faces. Thoughts become visible, desires glow like embers, regrets ache like distant thunder, not as punishment, no, but as unfinished chords longing for resolution. If the soul still craves revenge, or pleasure, or recognition, it may feel itself drawn downward, toward rebirth, toward dense vibration. But if the soul, even amidst its past mistakes, longs for freedom, longs for God, longs for peace, it is pulled upward, like a flame rising to meet its source. The soul is not judged by a divine tribunal. It judges itself. It sees clearly. It understands with sudden sharpness why certain things happened, how its choices rippled across the lives of others, and how its destiny was shaped by its inward state. This can bring sorrow, but it is sacred sorrow, the kind that awakens rather than condemns. I have seen souls weep in these moments, not because they were afraid, but because they remembered how deeply they had once forgotten. Some souls linger in attachment, not out of evil, but out of unfinished longing. A mother who still clings to her child, a man who still clings to his wealth, a lover who cannot let go of his beloved. They may drift near the earth not knowing they are free. Others rise quickly, like doves released into the sky, because they have already released the world before the world released them. During these days, the astral body is like a mirror. It reflects everything still held within, and so the yogi prepares in life, day by day, to clear that mirror, not by suppressing desire, but by sanctifying it, turning every longing into longing for God. When the only thirst that remains is for the divine, the soul becomes light, and nothing can bind it to the lower planes. And you, beloved listener, must ask yourself even now, if I died today, what would I still reach for? What would draw my soul back? Whatever that is, work with it, bless it, release it. Do not fear it. Transform it. Let us breathe now, together. Inhale gently through the nose, and as you exhale, whisper inwardly, I release all that binds. I remember all that lifts. This is not fantasy. This is preparation. This is your soul remembering itself before the veil is drawn. The soul, in these 13 days, is not lost. It is searching. It is surveying the landscape of its becoming. It feels the warmth of love, the gravity of karma, the tug of what was, and the beckoning of what could be. And in the next step of our journey, we will see that it is given a choice, the sacred crossroads between clinging and ascending, between repetition and return. Now we come to the most sacred moment of all, when the soul, having departed the body, having felt the residue of sensation and the echo of its past desires, stands at a threshold that even angels observe in reverence. For in these 13 days, as the karmic winds stir and the soul surveys its own reflections, it is quietly offered a choice not made in words, not in judgment, but in resonance. The soul will either cling or ascend, and that choice will determine what comes next, not just for one lifetime, but for many. This is the hidden reason why so many souls reincarnate swiftly. It is not God's decree, it is their own magnetism. They are pulled back by unfinished dreams, by the hunger for recognition, by the illusion that something was left undone on earth. They return not because they are condemned, but because they are still curious, still entangled, still identified with what passes. This is what I mean when I say that karma is not punishment. It is postponed education. That which you do not master, you repeat. That which you cling to, you must hold again until your hands grow weary and finally let go in wisdom. The soul who clings not always out of sin, but out of forgetfulness. The soul who clings still believes the world is the source of joy. It may feel sorrow at leaving behind a spouse, a child, a vocation. It may feel regret for not having achieved a goal, or guilt for past harms. These feelings are not wrong, but if the soul identifies with them, it binds itself to return. And yet, even in that state, a single whisper of divine longing, a single inner prayer, "God, take me home," can shift everything. The pull of one moment of surrender can outweigh the gravity of lifetimes. On the other hand, the soul who chooses to ascend does so not by effort, but by remembrance. It realizes, I was never the body, I was never the role, I am the light behind all forms. This realization does not always arise with fireworks or visions. It often comes in quiet clarity, a gentle recognition that nothing is missing, that the play is complete, that what awaits is not unknown, but home. And the soul rises, not like a rocket, but like incense, subtle, fragrant, lifted by its own inward purity. I once saw a soul, recently departed, hover near a garden where she had walked in her final years. The flowers were blooming, the birds singing, but she no longer felt longing. She gazed at the place with calm gratitude, then turned inward, upward. A great beam of light appeared, like a golden bridge, and she moved into it without resistance. There was no fear, no sadness, only the sweetness of return. She had no need to cling, for her heart was already dwelling in the higher realms before her body ever passed. You see, beloved, the choice to ascend is not made in the moment of death. It is made now, in how you live, in what you love, in what you identify with. Every moment of meditation is a rehearsal for this choice. Every act of selflessness loosens the cords that bind. Every remembrance of God builds a ladder from earth to spirit. The yogi dies daily, dies to ego, dies to restlessness, dies to illusion, and thus when the final death comes, he simply steps through a door he has already opened. Ask yourself now, quietly, with courage, if I were to die tonight, what would pull at me? What unfinished longing would keep my soul near the earth? Let the answer come without shame. Let it arise gently, and then with equal gentleness, begin to release it, not by force, but by love. Replace that longing with something higher. Say inwardly, I offer this to thee, my beloved. Let me love thee more than I love this world. Let us breathe again, as souls preparing to choose the light. Inhale through the nose, drawing divine awareness up the spine. Exhale slowly, feeling every attachment soften and melt. Whisper within, I will not cling. I will ascend. I choose remembrance. Remember this, child of God. The soul is always free. It is not coerced. It is not judged. It is invited. These 13 days are a grace, a final question whispered from heaven. Will you come home now? And the answer is not spoken in words. It is spoken in the frequency of your being. Choose now, while breath still fills your chest, how you will respond. And now, beloved, let me lift the veil still higher and speak to you not from speculation, but from sacred vision, from what I and the great ones before me have seen with the opened eye of spirit. For the soul, though invisible to earthly eyes once it leaves the body, does not journey alone. The masters watch, the saints observe, the illumined ones stand at the edge of time, in silence and in love, bearing witness to the soul's passage through the mysterious corridor of the 13 days. Nothing is lost. No cry goes unheard. No yearning passes unnoticed in that realm where thought is form and love is the law. When I sat in meditation and beheld the souls of the newly departed, I did not see shadows, nor ghosts, nor empty fragments wandering without aim. I saw radiant sparks of consciousness, some dimmed by fear or confusion, others glowing with sudden remembrance. I saw souls turn back toward their lifeless forms with a mixture of awe and sorrow, awe that such a temple had carried them through life, and sorrow that they had mistaken the shell for the indweller. I saw some souls, surprised, whisper inwardly, I am still alive, and that whisper, though faint, was the beginning of their liberation. There are souls who, even in their confusion, radiate a certain innocence, a sincerity born of love. They may not know scriptures, they may not have meditated, but their hearts overflowed with kindness and sacrifice. And when such souls leave the body, the masters draw near, not to reward, not to judge, but to guide. to whisper without words, "You are not alone. Follow the light. Let go." And I have seen those souls respond, like flowers opening to the sun. They begin to rise, not pulled, not pushed, but invited upward by the very magnetism of their own goodness. But I've also seen other souls, souls clouded with heavy vibrations, dense with clinging, with anger, with fear. These do not rise immediately. They linger. They drift near the familiar. They knock at the doors of memory, hoping to re-enter the story that has already ended. And the masters do not interfere. For the soul must choose. Even God does not violate the law of free will. But the great ones remain nearby in watchfulness, in prayer, in silent readiness, like parents who wait patiently for the child to look up from his toys and remember the way home. And there are those, oh yes, there are those, whose consciousness has already ascended before death ever came. These are the yogis, the lovers of God, the inwardly awakened. When death touches their body, it does not disturb them. It is like removing a sandal before entering the temple of the infinite. I have seen such souls smile at the moment of death, smile not outwardly, but inwardly, with the serene joy of one who has completed a sacred journey and now returns to the beloved. They do not hover, they do not linger, they rise. They move through the astral realms like rays of the sun returning to their source. And the masters welcome them, not with fanfare, but with stillness. For in that stillness is the greatest celebration of all, reunion. Understand this, the masters do not view these 13 days as tragedy or loss. They see them as the unfolding of a divine curriculum. Each soul, no matter how lost it may appear to others, is on its path back to God. Some take longer paths, some walk in circles, some sleep by the roadside, but all are destined to awaken, and in those days after death, the masters look not at what the soul has done, but at what it still yearns for. They look for the spark, the hunger, the smallest opening through which light can enter, and they shine toward it, waiting. You may wonder, how can they see so much? Because the soul, once free of the body, is made of vibration. Its thoughts are visible, its emotions form colors, its desires hum with audible tones. To the earthly mind, all this is hidden, but to the awakened one, nothing is hidden. In meditation, I have watched these soul ori form and dissolve, expand and contract, glow with hope or dim with clinging, and always I have felt the unceasing compassion of the divine, waiting patiently for every soul to remember. Now breathe with me again. Inhale through the spine, lifting awareness to the spiritual eye. Exhale into stillness, and feel the gaze of the infinite upon you. You are never unseen. Even in your darkest hour, the masters see you. And when your final breath comes, they will be there, not with fear, but with light. Say with me now, inwardly, when I leave this world, I will not be alone. The masters walk with me. God remembers me. I am guided by light. Let this truth settle into your being. For what the masters see in those days, they already see in you now. And if you begin to live as one who has already died to illusion, then when the hour comes, you will rise without effort, like a swan lifting from a still lake into the skies of eternity. Now let us turn our gaze toward the actions of the living, those left behind when the soul departs the body. In the wake of death, we perform rituals, we burn incense, we chant verses, we dress the body in white or flowers or silence. We do these things because the soul's absence creates a sacred rupture, and we do not know what else to do but move our hands in reverence. But I say to you now, not all rituals lift the soul. Not all customs are alive with spiritual power. Some are husks, some are habits, some are sacred. Let us learn to tell the difference. What the soul needs in those 13 days is vibration, not noise. The soul no longer understands words as the body did. It feels frequency. It responds to intention. It rises on waves of inner peace and is calmed by currents of love. 1,000 ritual fires cannot help the soul if the hearts of those around it are burning with grief and despair. But a single silent gaze, a single whispered prayer from a heart centered in God, that can become a chariot of light that carries the soul upward. There are many who weep, not out of reverence, but out of fear. They mourn because they feel something has been taken from them. But let me remind you, the soul is not lost. It has only stepped behind the veil. Cry if you must, but do not cry for the soul. Cry for your forgetfulness of its true nature. Better than tears is remembrance. Better than lamentation is the vibration of love. Chant Om. Offer flowers with your consciousness, not just your hands. Sit in stillness and say within, I release you, I lift you, I bless you. These are the rituals that work. Do not mistake the rice for the offering. It is not the food placed on the altar that nourishes the soul, but the love that placed it there. Do not think your duty ends with lighting a lamp. Let your own life be the lamp. Let your own stillness be the flame. If your vibration is restless, angry, or sorrowful, it will call the soul back. But if your vibration is still, joyful, and surrendered, it tells the soul, go in peace. We remember who you are. Many ask me, should we pray for the dead? And I answer, do not pray for them as if they are helpless. Pray for them as if they are awakening. Shine light upon their path. Hold the thought that they are rising. Your prayer does not coerce the soul, but it creates a gentle wind behind them, lifting them toward higher realms. Say this with me now, inwardly. I send you light. I release you in light. I rise with you in God's light, and feel how even your own soul becomes lighter. For when you free another, you free yourself. Beloved, let us speak not only of what happens after death, but of what you can do before it ever arrives. For the 13 days after your final breath are not some distant fate to be feared or avoided. They are a sacred passage to be prepared for. You prepare not by gathering wealth, not by prolonging youth, not by seeking distraction, but by remembering each day that you are already a soul, and the one who dies daily to illusion shall find no sorrow in death. Do not wait for the doctor's words or the closing of the eyes to begin your departure. Begin now. Depart from the false self. Depart from the noise of ego. Depart from the restless tide of worldly longing. Practice this each morning before the world awakens. Sit in stillness. Close your eyes. Withdraw your energy from the body. Feel yourself no longer as this name, this gender, this role, but as light, as breathless, thoughtless awareness. This is the rehearsal that prepares you to rise. Every time you meditate deeply, you walk the soul's path ahead of schedule. You loosen the ties of attachment. You polish the mirror of consciousness. You teach the body to let go, the mind to rest, the heart to burn with divine yearning. When your awareness enters the spine and ascends to the spiritual eye, you are simulating the very process of death, but without fear, without grief. It becomes familiar. And so, when the hour of transition comes, you will walk through it not as a stranger, but as a saint returning to his homeland. Kriya Yoga, which I was sent to share, is the sacred technology of this preparation. It is not a belief. It is not dogma. It is the science of conscious transition. Each breath drawn upward through the spine purifies the karmic seeds that would otherwise magnetize you to rebirth. Each exhalation downward, surrendered into stillness, teaches the soul to release what it does not need. Kriya is the ladder by which the soul ascends, not just in death, but in every moment it chooses remembrance over illusion. You see, beloved, death is not the great equalizer, it is the great revealer. It reveals the state of your consciousness. If you lived in forgetfulness, death feels like erasure. If you lived in self-effort but fear, death feels like suspense. But if you lived in devotion, in meditation, in surrender, death feels like liberation, like the lifting of a veil, like the long-awaited return to the arms of the infinite beloved. So ask yourself now, am I ready to die today? Not morbidly, not with dread, but as a child might ask, am I ready to go home? If there is hesitation, then use it. Let that hesitation become fuel. Use this day as a preparation. Love more deeply. Meditate more sincerely. Forgive more quickly. Loosen the grip of things you cannot take with you, and hold fast to that which never dies. God, truth, love. Let us breathe now, together. Inhale slowly, feeling the breath rise like a flame up the altar of your spine. Hold it there, at the point between the eyebrows. Exhale into stillness, and whisper inwardly, I am not afraid. I have already begun to ascend. I walk in light even before death calls my name. Do not live in fear of the 13 days. Live in such a way that your very presence becomes a preparation. Let every thought be a sacred offering. Let every action carry the fragrance of eternity. Let every morning begin with this vow. Today I shall live as a soul, remembering its return. And when the final breath does come, You shall rise with such peace, such joy, such freedom, that even the angels will rejoice at your passage. This, my beloved, is how you prepare for the 13 days, not by waiting, but by awakening now. And now we arrive at the threshold, the sacred turning point beyond which the soul no longer lingers between worlds, but is drawn inexorably toward its next destiny. After the 13th day, the veil closes. The soul, having hovered near its former life, absorbing the residue of experience, feeling the pulse of desire, weighing the pull of karma, now begins to move. It does not wander aimlessly. It is drawn by law, spiritual magnetism. The vibration it cultivated in life becomes the compass of its ascent or return. What lies beyond the 13th day is not a sentence. It is a reflection. For the soul who still clings, who mourns its attachments, who fears release, who craves another taste of earth, rebirth becomes inevitable. This is not punishment. It is gravity. The soul sinks to the level of its own resonance. It is gently pulled into womb and world again, carried by the current of desire to another stage, another lesson, another form in which to remember what it has forgotten. But for the soul who chooses light, for the one who rises, who remembers, who lets go, the 13th day marks the beginning of ascent. The soul moves beyond the astral echo of earth and into higher spheres, more refined and radiant than anything known in mortal life. These realms are not myths. I have seen them. I have visited them in deep samadhi. They exist, not as imagination, but as vibration. Their landscapes are made of thought, their colors of joy, their architecture of harmony. They are realms where love is not spoken, but seen, where time does not march, but radiates, where the soul rests not in forgetfulness, but in blissful, conscious absorption. Some of these realms are learning spheres, where souls gather in luminous halls to review their past lives, to study divine truths, to commune with spiritual guides. Others are healing realms, where souls weary from karmic storms are soothed in oceans of light, where they are bathed in compassion and made whole again. And still others are spheres of divine service, where advanced souls assist in the upliftment of others, preparing to reincarnate not from compulsion but from compassion. And then, there are the highest astral spheres, those where the avatars dwell, where the saints abide, where music is the very breath of space, and love the law of motion. These are not places of idleness, but of holy absorption. The soul does not sleep there. It shines. It remembers fully. It knows at last that it was never separate, that all lifetimes, all struggles, all tears were but shadows cast by the light of its own becoming. But not all souls reach these heights immediately. The ascent is gradual, governed by inner readiness. No soul is denied. All are on the path home. Some walk slowly, some in spirals, some in leaps. But the divine parent waits for each, with arms wide and unchanging. You must know this. Once the 13th day has passed, the soul no longer feels drawn to the earth unless its desires remain rooted there. It becomes invisible, not because it has disappeared, but because it has risen beyond the frequencies of human perception. It is not lost. It is lifted. It is no longer waiting at the door. It has stepped into the beyond. For those who mourn, understand this. Your loved one is not trapped in the ground. The grave holds only the garment. The soul has moved on. Speak to them not in past tense, but in eternal terms. Say, you are light. You are love. You are free. Say, I will meet you again, in that place where time forgets itself and only God remains. Let us breathe now, beloved. Inhale with the awareness that your soul, too, is moving. Exhale with the surrender that says, I go where God leads me. Say within, after the 13th day, I shall not return in confusion. I shall rise in light. I shall dwell with the saints. I shall remember. What lies beyond the 13th day is not the end. It is the next beginning. And what you do now, while still in the body, determines how clearly you will walk into that dawn. Beloved soul, if you have walked with me through this journey, if you have opened the inner ear of your heart and listened beyond words, then know this. This has not been a teaching about death. This has been a sacred invitation to life, not the fleeting life of body and breath, but the undying life of your spirit. which even now calls out to you with the tenderness of a forgotten lover. Remember me. I am who you were before the world named you. I am who you will be when the world forgets you. You are not a mortal waiting to die. You are an immortal remembering to live. You are not flesh becoming dust. You are light becoming conscious. And every day that you awaken, every hour that you breathe, is not merely another day on earth. It is a rehearsal for return, a sacred chance to prepare your soul's robe for the banquet of the infinite. So I ask you now, as your brother, as one who walks with God, will you live as if you are already dead to the illusions of this world? Will you walk as one already risen? Will you begin today to prepare not for the funeral, but for the flight? Close your eyes. Inhale deeply. Let the breath lift you as if it were the divine wind beneath your soul's wings. Exhale slowly, releasing the fear, the doubt, the identity that never belonged to you. And as you rest in that stillness, hear these words not as instruction, but as remembrance. You are not alone. You have never been alone. The saints are with you. The masters are watching. The divine beloved dwells within your breath, within your gaze, within your tears. And when the 13th day comes for you, if you have lived with awareness, with devotion, with surrender, it will not come as a thief. It will come as a friend, a gentle hand opening a door you had already unlocked. So now, before you return to the rhythm of your day, take a vow, not outwardly, but inwardly, a vow known only to your soul and to the infinite witness who watches it always. Say within, I will live as one who has already died to illusion. I will remember. I will rise. I am the soul, sent by God, sustained by God, and returning to God. And if you feel the truth of these words, let them not stay within. Share them. Speak light into this darkened world. Be the one who carries remembrance to the restless. And as a final offering in this moment of stillness, right below, I walk in light even before death calls my name. Let the world see your vow. Let your soul see itself declared. This is the call to the living soul. This is your awakening. This is the 13th day. Now.
My beloved, if you have lost someone, or if the shadow of death has brushed your own thoughts, do not turn away now. The pain you feel is not the end. It is the holy entrance. The ache in your heart is not punishment. It is divine awakening. Let me tell you what the world has not dared to whisper. Death does not end the soul. It reveals it. You were never meant to fear death. It is not the tomb you've been taught to dread. It is a veil being drawn open. A body returns to dust. Yes, but the soul rises into light. You have been told that death is final, that once the breath leaves, the story ends. But I say unto you, with the certainty of spirit, the soul never dies. It merely changes rooms. When my beloved guru, Sri Yukteswar, shed his body, he came to me, not in vision, not in imagination, but in divine form. His radiant presence appeared before me in Bombay, clothed in celestial light, speaking with the clarity of eternity. He said, I am not dead, my son. I have only cast off the worn garment, and I knew in that moment that the lie of death had been exposed. There is no death for the soul. There is only forgetting and remembering. You see, the material world clings to the body. It identifies with flesh, with aging, with loss. And so when the body is no longer animated by breath, the world cries, they are gone. But what is it that animates the body? It is not lungs. It is not heartbeats. It is consciousness, the divine power that indwells matter and gives it purpose. When that power withdraws, the form collapses, but the source, the self, remains untouched. Imagine the ocean. A wave rises, playful, distinct, dancing with identity, and then it crashes upon the shore and disappears. But has the wave died? Number, it has only returned to the vastness from which it came. So too with your soul. You are a wave on the sea of spirit. You rise for a while, take a form, play your role, and then when the time comes, you return, not into nothingness, but into the fullness of your divine origin. But here is the sacred tragedy. The world has forgotten. It mourns as though the wave has ended. It clings to form and forgets the formless. It buries bodies and thinks the soul has been buried too. And you, dear listener, may carry this same grief in your chest. Maybe you've said goodbye to someone and your heart still bleeds. Maybe you lie awake, afraid of what will happen when your time comes. Maybe you've whispered, "Where did they go? Are they still near? Is there anything beyond this?" Let me answer, not with hope, but with revelation. The soul does not go nowhere. It goes inward. It ascends into realms finer than thought, brighter than sunlight, more real than anything your senses have ever touched. And this journey, this path from flesh to light, is not chaotic. It is governed by divine law, by cosmic order. For 13 days after death, the soul walks a bridge between the material and the astral. It is not yet fully gone. It is not yet fully free. It is hovering gently, gracefully, absorbing the last vibrations of its earthly life and preparing to rise. This is not folklore. This is not superstition. This is the knowledge of the rishis, the seers, the realized souls who have walked both sides of the veil, and I too have seen. I do not speak as one who believes. I speak as one who knows. Death is not to be feared. It is to be understood. And the more you understand it, the more you will begin to live, not as a body destined to end, but as a soul destined to awaken. So I ask you now, take a breath. Inhale not air, but remembrance. Exhale not tension, but illusion. Let your spine grow tall. Let your eyes close gently. Place one hand over your heart. Do not say anything yet. Just feel the stillness behind your thoughts. That stillness is you. You are not your name. You are not your history. You are not your memories. You are the awareness that has watched them all. You have never died. You have only shifted scenes. And if that is true, then why fear death? Why mourn as though the beloved is lost? They are not gone. They are simply traveling inward. They are being drawn day by day toward a greater light. And if you remain still, if you purify your own vibration, you can meet them, not in words, but in soul presence. So stay with me. Let me take you further. Because what happens next, the soul's 13-day journey, is not random. It is not silent. It is filled with divine instruction, and you must understand it. If you are to walk with peace, if you are to release those who have departed, and if you are to prepare for your own radiant return home. Shall I continue with part 2? Divine Origin Revelation. You were never born, and you will never die. You said, continue. ChatGPT said, second Divine Origin Revelation. You were never born, and you will never die. Approximately 5,000 plus characters. My beloved, come closer in the silence of your being and listen now, not with your ears, but with your soul. For what I'm about to remind you is not new. It is ancient, older than the stars, buried beneath your every breath. You were never born and you will never die. The body you wear is not your identity. It is your costume, your temporary appearance in the theater of God. But the watcher behind the eyes, the listener behind the ears, the knower of thought, that one is eternal. In the language of the saints, we call this the Atman, the soul, the individualized spark of spirit that has descended into time for a holy play. And though you have walked through many lives, through joy and sorrow, through gain and loss, through birth and death, you have never ceased to be. You are not a human seeking God. You are God playing as human, seeking to remember himself. Let the illusion fall away now. Let the mask of mortality drop from your face. Look in the mirror, not with physical eyes, but with soul gaze, and ask, who am I? Am I these bones, these thoughts, these memories, or am I something more subtle, more luminous, more infinite? You are a wave upon the ocean of spirit, and though the wave may rise and fall, crash and disappear, it never ceases to be part of the sea. So too with your essence. You are the ocean pretending to be a drop. You are eternity acting out a story of time. This is why death cannot touch you. It can only touch what is not truly yours. The body, yes, will return to the elements, earth to earth, water to water, fire to fire. But the soul, your true self, rises. Not up, as in a direction, but inward, as in a dimension. It withdraws from the sensory world and enters the subtler vibration of the astral realm, the world of light, thought, and feeling. There in the astral world, you are no longer confined by mass or muscle. You move by thought. You shine with color. You speak through vibration. You wear a body of light created by your karma, molded by your desires, painted by your past actions. And this body too is temporary, but far more refined than the gross shell you have left behind. I have walked in that world, and I tell you, it is not fiction. It is more real than this world of stone and skin. The senses here are dull echoes. In the astral realm, you taste joy. You see vibration. You feel divine music passing through your being. This is your true home. You are not going somewhere foreign when you die. You are returning. And on the 13th day, when the soul finally loosens its last attachments to earth, it begins to settle more firmly into its astral reality. This moment is sacred. It is a birth in reverse, a soul reborn into its next form. And just as the birth of a baby is celebrated, so too should this release be honored. For in this act, the soul is released from its heavy burdens. It becomes again what it was before the body, light, free, aware. You do not need to wait until the moment of death to touch this truth. You can taste it now. Every deep meditation is a mini-death, a sacred departure from the senses, a journey back into the subtle self. When you sit in stillness, spine straight, breath calm, gaze lifted to the Christ center between the eyebrows, you are rehearsing your homecoming. You are practicing what it means to live beyond form. This is the science of yoga, not stretching, not performance, but death rehearsal, life rehearsal, soul remembrance. You were not created on the day you were born. You were revealed, and you will not disappear on the day you die. You will be revealed again, naked and radiant, stripped of illusion, clothed only in the light you've earned through love and awareness. So take courage. What seems like an ending is a doorway. What you fear as silence is actually song. What you dread as separation is union's beginning. Say this now with me, not as belief, but as declaration. I was never born. I will never die. I am the soul, untouched by fire, wind, or time. I am a wave on the ocean of spirit. I rise and fall, but I never leave the sea. When your breath ceases, your awareness will not. When your heartbeat stills, your consciousness will soar. And when you forget all that you were told, you will finally remember all that you truly are. Let this not be mere comfort for your grief. Let this be a summons to live now as the soul, to think as the soul, to walk as the soul before your final departure. For those who live from the soul have nothing to fear when the body falls away. And those who know this truth can guide others home. Now listen closely, my beloved, for we approach a moment of great subtlety, a truth whispered by sages, obscured by the illusions of the senses, and yet pulsing at the core of every death ritual ever performed with reverence. The question trembles on your lips. If the soul is eternal, why does it remain near the body for 13 days? Why does it not simply vanish into the light the moment breath departs? The answer is this. Though the soul is free, it is wrapped in many veils. Veils of memory, veils of attachment, veils of karmic inertia. At the moment of death, the soul leaves the body, yes, but it does not immediately become liberated. It is like a bird whose cage has been flung open, but who hesitates to fly, still remembering the familiar corners of its prison. The soul, in its early moments after death, is still magnetized by the earthly realm. Its thoughts remain bound to the life it just left behind, loved ones, unfinished dreams, fears, desires, and regrets. In the first few days, the soul often remains close to the places and people it once cherished. It watches, it listens. Sometimes it tries to speak, though you cannot hear it with the ears of flesh. This is not haunting. This is not superstition. This is gravitational love, the pull of vibration that still binds soul to world. And the universe, in its compassion, allows this sacred window of release, 13 days of transition before the soul is fully drawn into its next sphere. In India, the scriptures prescribe prayers, rituals, and meditations for these days, not to manipulate the dead, but to lift them, to bless their passage, to untangle their attachments with gentle mantras, sacred fire, and remembrance. This is why we chant, why we fast, why we hold silence. Not for show, but for soul transport. Your prayers become wings. Your devotion becomes the light by which they see their path more clearly. The soul is not a ghost. It is not drifting aimlessly, but it is in between. It is like a seed that has left one soil and is yet to be planted in another. During these 13 days, it is sensitive, profoundly so. It hears your thoughts more clearly than ever. It feels your grief, your peace, your fear, your love, and the soul, like a tuning fork, begins to resonate with the strongest vibration surrounding it. If you cry with hopelessness, it lingers in sorrow. If you pray with surrender, it rises in peace. If you release it in love, it feels free to ascend. This is why the rituals exist, not as mere tradition, but as vibrational guidance systems for the disembodied. Now I must tell you this, though it may pierce, many souls linger longer than they need to, because those left behind cling too tightly. Thoughts of "don't go," "why did you leave me?" or "I can't live without you" become chains, not because they are bad, but because they are born of illusion. The illusion that love must hold the form, that presence must require a body. But you must love more purely now, more spiritually. You must say, not "stay with me," but "fly home. I will find you in spirit." The soul cannot truly rise while others keep calling it back with grief soaked in fear. But when you speak to them with the voice of the soul, they hear. They understand. They begin to walk the bridge between worlds with steady feet. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine a lake at dawn. The mist is thick. You can just make out the outline of the opposite shore. That is the state of the soul in the 13 days after death. It knows it must cross, but it looks back to see if those it loved have lit a lamp to guide its way. If they have, it moves forward in peace. If not, it hesitates. Light that lamp now, in your prayers, in your meditations, in your affirmations. Say, "You are light, you are loved, you are free. I release you into God's arms. Go where your joy is waiting." These are not just beautiful phrases. They are threads of light, and the soul will follow them. And when your time comes, dear one, when you too must walk the path they now walk, would you not want others to do the same for you? So let us remember, the 13-day window is not an accident. It is sacred time. It is a bridge, not a gap. And in that bridge, love must not become a prison. It must become a blessing. Say this with me. I do not cling, I uplift. I do not mourn as one abandoned. I bless as one who sees beyond the veil. In this way, Maya, the illusion that death is loss, is pierced, and truth, the knowing that love transcends time, is born. Come now deeper still, my child of light, and walk with me along the luminous bridge where the soul journeys after it has left the body behind. For the path is not blackness, not silence, not void. It is radiant and ordered. It is guided by laws more precise than physics and more compassionate than the mind can fathom. The soul does not drift. It is drawn. On the day of death, the soul experiences what many saints have called the great realization. Like a man waking from a long dream, the soul is astonished. It sees that it was never the body, never the name, never the drama it once clung to. In the first hours, there is light. For some, great relief. For others, a frightened confusion. But always there is awareness. I am still here. Days 1 to 3. The soul remains close to the body and to loved ones. It watches, it listens, it revisits places once dear. Not out of haunting, but out of karmic magnetism. These first days are tender. The soul may be confused, especially if it identified too deeply with the physical form. Some try to speak, some try to linger. But slowly, the veil begins to lift. The realization settles in. I have left. Days 4 to 10. The pull toward the astral world increases. This realm, dear one, is not fantasy. It is more real than the material. It is the place you visit in dreams, the dimension you glimpse in deep meditation. Its colors are not of paint, but of vibration. Its forms are not of flesh, but of light. In the astral realm, the soul receives what it has earned through thought, desire, and action. There are spheres of joy and spheres of sorrow, but all are learning environments designed by the great cosmic intelligence. Yogananda once described this world as more beautiful than the most magnificent sunrise on earth. The trees glow, the waters sing, the sky pulses with auric light. Souls there do not age. They do not suffer in the way earthbound creatures do. They continue to grow, to reflect, to serve, to prepare for the next phase of their journey. But not all souls go immediately into bliss. Some, bound by heavy karma or violent death, pass through a denser astral experience. Still learning, still moving, but more slowly. Yet even this is mercy, for the astral world is not a place of punishment. It is a classroom for remembrance. Days 11 to 13. Here the soul reviews, not with regret, but with clarity. It sees the entire life that just ended, the choices made, the people touched, the words spoken and unspoken, and not only what was done, but how it made others feel. Every ripple is seen, and the soul understands. I was shaping my next life with each thought. It feels no shame, only recognition. A divine film is played, not to condemn, but to illuminate. Then the soul is drawn toward its next destination. If the karma is light and the longing for God deep, it may pass into higher astral spheres or even the causal world, the subtle realm of pure ideas, where no form remains. There, only saints dwell. If the soul has completed all its karma and burns with divine longing, it may not return to earth again. It ascends to final union, never to wear a body again. But if desires remain and lessons are still to be learned, the soul will choose or be guided toward its next incarnation. Not randomly, not cruelly, but with divine justice and perfect design. The family, the location, the body, it all corresponds to the soul's own blueprint. This is what you must understand. The soul is not wandering in darkness. It is being drawn step by vibrational law. Just as a magnet draws iron, the soul is pulled by its dominant tendencies. If one dies with anger, they move toward a world resonant with anger. If one dies in peace, they move toward realms filled with that peace. So what does this mean for you? It means every thought matters. Every desire shapes your next world. And more than anything, it means that the way you die is determined by the way you live. Live now as one who is ready to die, not in despair, but in freedom. Detach gently, serve selflessly, love deeply, meditate daily. And then, when your moment comes, you will not be afraid. You will smile as the saints do and say, at last the soul returns home. Say this with me now. I am not the body, I am the traveler. My soul walks with light, my path is already written in the stars. Let this not just be a poetic image. Let it be the truth you carry into every interaction. The one before you is not just a person. They are a soul in transition. Honor them. Bless them. See beyond the mask. And when one you love departs this plane, remember, they are not lost. They are traveling a road they've walked many times, but this time, they may be closer to the final gate, and your love, if pure, can help guide them through it. Come now into stillness, beloved one, and open not your mouth but your heart. For there is a way to speak to those who have gone beyond the veil, and it is not with noise. It is not with desperation. It is not with ritual alone. It is with the sacred voice of the soul. The dead do not vanish into nothing. They do not fall into silence. They listen, keenly, tenderly, for a certain sound, the sound of unselfish love still echoing from the earth they've departed. So many mourn with cries that bind. Don't leave me. Why did you go? Come back. These cries, though natural, arise from the ego's belief that form is love, that presence must have a body. But the soul knows otherwise. The soul does not cling. It communes. It blesses. It releases, not out of indifference, but out of reverence. You can speak to the departed, but not with your lips. Speak through stillness. Speak through the altar of your breath. Speak through vibration. When you sit in silence, when your breath slows and your heart opens like a flower, there in that sacred chamber, you may call to them. Not to pull them back, but to let them know. I remember you. I send you light. I bless your journey. The 13-day window we have spoken of is not just for the soul's release. It is for your refinement too. It is a chance for you to transform grief into wisdom, attachment into sacred letting go. On these days, and even long after, you may find moments when your thoughts turn to them, not with pain, but with a strange sweetness. Do not dismiss this. It is often the soul reaching out to say, I am near, I am well, walk in peace. I tell you this from experience, not from theory. I have sat in silence and felt the presence of saints long gone. I have received their blessings in the form of light, a sudden peace, a tear with no sorrow. And you can too, but you must raise your vibration to meet theirs. Let me show you how. At night when the world is quiet, light a candle, not out of superstition, but to symbolize the light of your soul reaching out through the darkness of grief. Sit before it with spine tall. Close your eyes. Bring your awareness to the point between the eyebrows, the seat of divine vision. Then speak silently, as if whispering across the stars. I do not hold you. I free you. I do not weep. I remember. You are light. You are still. You are walking the path of joy. I bless your every step. And then, stop speaking. Listen. Let the silence grow thick, not with words, but with presence. Perhaps you will feel a subtle pressure, a warmth, a flutter of peace in the heart. Perhaps not. It does not matter. What matters is that you gave them the greatest gift, the silent goodbye, the unbinding prayer. In India, we perform the Shraddha rituals, not to appease the dead, but to nourish the soul's passage. In Christianity, candles are lit. In other traditions, flowers are floated down rivers. What unites them all is the unspoken truth. Love does not die with the body, it transforms. And the soul that receives love in this form is lifted, comforted, unafraid. But the opposite is also true. Excessive mourning, obsessive clinging, unresolved anger. These tie the soul down. They confuse it. They delay its ascent. And so the greatest act of devotion you can offer is not to mourn endlessly, but to live beautifully in their honor. When a loved one dies, do not ask, why did they leave? Ask, how shall I walk now, carrying their light within me? If you live with peace, with devotion, with surrender, then every breath you take becomes a hymn in their name. Let us not call to the dead with desperation. Let us call to them with stillness. Say this now in your heart. May your soul be wrapped in light. May your journey be clear. May we meet again in the higher realms when my time comes. And to yourself say, I walk the earth, but I live as soul. I remember that the veil is thin. I am never truly apart from those I have loved. Grief will come, yes, but do not let it harden into illusion. Let it soften into prayer. For every soul once released walks the path of return. And your love, when purified of clinging, becomes the wind at their back. This is how to say goodbye, not with noise, not with fear, but with the quiet, powerful voice of the soul. Now that we have walked the sacred bridge alongside those who have departed, let me turn your gaze inward, for the true mystery is not just what happens after death. It is what you are doing with the breath that fills you now. You too are a soul in transit. Every day is a step on your own path toward that same portal. And the great spiritual paradox is this: to live rightly, you must learn how to die daily. Do you not see, my beloved, that the journey of the soul beyond the body is not some distant event? It is rehearsed every night as you fall asleep, every moment you enter meditation, every time you choose stillness over restlessness. These are not mere moments of rest. They are micro-deaths, departures from the ego into the spirit. And if you take them seriously, they become initiations. The 13-day journey after death mirrors your 13-day journey through every life pattern you refuse to end. What is death but change you have resisted? And what is liberation but the realization that nothing real can be lost? So I ask you now, what part of you needs to die before your body does? What illusion must fall away so that the soul may rise? Perhaps it is your attachment to titles, to fears, to expectations. Perhaps it is your belief that you are small, forgotten, or alone. Perhaps it is your guilt, your grief, your story. Let it die, not violently, not with shame, but like the soul does after death, slowly, gently, through remembrance and light. This is the cosmic invitation to begin now what you think you will have time for later. Do not wait for your final breath to begin your soul's journey. Begin it this morning, in this very hour. Every time you remember, I am not this name, this body, this role, you take a step toward true freedom. When the soul leaves the body, it reviews its life, not with pride or regret, but with clarity. And what if you could do that now? What if you could look at your choices from the eyes of your eternal self? Would you continue to carry that resentment? Would you delay that act of love? Would you withhold that forgiveness from yourself or others? Do not wait until your loved ones are ashes to write them poems. Do not wait until your final days to meditate deeply. Do not wait until loss breaks your heart to remember what matters. Live now as the soul, and death will not frighten you. It will bow to you. Understand this well. The same laws that guide the soul after death are guiding you now. The vibration you emit becomes the path you walk. The thoughts you repeat become your future home. The desires you cling to shape your next birth, or your freedom from birth entirely. This is not superstition, it is divine science. Say this with me. I walk as the soul, not the ego. I remember the laws that govern the invisible. I prepare for death by mastering life. And let your life now become an offering. Every day wake up and say, this may be my last sunrise in this form, so let me love with full abandon. Let me forgive with all my soul. Let me serve with divine purpose. Then when your day of transition comes, you will not beg for more time. You will close your eyes with a smile and whisper, I have lived from the soul. I am ready. The greatest lesson death teaches is how to live, not carelessly, not frantically, but eternally aware. So now, dear one, the path is before you. You know where the soul goes. You know why it lingers. You know how to speak to the departed. But most importantly, you know that your own life must now become a rehearsal for transcendence. Take one breath now, not from habit, but from awareness, and say in your heart, I am the soul born of light, destined for union. I walk through time, but I belong to eternity. And so we turn now to the final moment in this revelation, not an ending, but a seal, a decree, a call to awaken more deeply than ever before. Beloved soul, now we come to the threshold, not of the script, but of your life's most sacred invitation. All that we have spoken of, the deathless self, the 13-day passage, the radiant realms, the soul's return, was never meant to be information. It was a mirror held up to the light within you, whispering, live differently now. For what good is it to know what happens after death if you do not prepare now to meet it in freedom? I do not mean to frighten you. Death is not your enemy, but it is your test. The final examination of a life either lived as a body or awakened as a soul. Every hour is your preparation. Every thought, your curriculum. Every moment of stillness, your classroom. And the diploma, liberation. Union with God, not someday, but now. You ask, how do I prepare for that? What can I do when the days are full of duties and the world is loud? I tell you, start simply. Start with the sacred breath. Each morning before the world enters, sit. Sit upright, spine straight, gaze lifted slightly inward. Place your hand over your heart and whisper inwardly, I am not this flesh. I am not this fear. I am the soul, remembering. May my thoughts be pure. May my breath be sacred. May my day be an offering. This is not poetry. This is soul conditioning. It is how you rewire your vibration, not just to live better, but to die rightly, in peace, in joy, in union. Let your home become a temple. Let your gaze become a blessing. Let your every interaction carry the remembrance. This soul before me is also on the path. They too will cross the bridge. I will meet them again in light. When you begin to live this way, you feel it. Your aura softens. Your words carry weight. Your breath lengthens. You are no longer reacting to life. You are offering yourself through it. Do not wait until your deathbed to seek God. Seek Him now. Speak to Him now. Love Him now. Say, "You are my eternal companion. I will not forget you again." For this is the great tragedy of mankind, to remember God only in crisis. But this need not be your path. You can walk with Him daily as your innermost guide, your divine beloved, your silent witness. And when your final breath comes, it will not be a gasp. It will be a homecoming. If you knew that tonight would be your last moment in this body, how would you sit? What would you say? Would you forgive? Would you pray? Would you let go? Practice it now. Close your eyes, lift your gaze gently to the point between the eyebrows. Breathe. And from the depths of your being, say silently, "Into thy hands, O Father, I release this body. Into thy light, I dissolve all fear. I have come from thee. I live in thee. I return to thee." Let this be your nightly ritual, not with sadness, but with soul readiness. The wise prepare not out of fear, but out of reverence. They live with one foot in eternity and the other in service. And in doing so, they die not as mortals, but as liberated ones. You see, my child, this was never a lesson about death. It was a reminder of your true nature. You are not here to survive. You are here to awaken. And the soul awakens not through comfort, but through surrender. So surrender now, not to despair, but to the divine order that governs every breath, every death, every return. Say, "I accept my journey, I bless my path, I align with my purpose." And walk forward now, not as a seeker, but as one who remembers. The final breath is not the end. It is the bell that rings when the lesson is over. And what waits on the other side is not punishment, but peace, not separation, but embrace. And so I bless you now. May you live as one already free. May your actions be those of a soul who will not be surprised when death comes, but will greet it as a familiar friend. And may you walk each day in such remembrance that when the 13th day comes for you, the light that receives you will say, "Welcome home. You did not forget." Say this with me one final time. I am the soul. I am the light. I am the remembrance of God on earth. Go now, not into fear, but into freedom, not into mourning, but into mission. You still have time. Use it, not for noise, but for divinity. The soul is eternal. The time is short. Begin now. You ask why you cannot hear God, and I tell you gently, you do not yet know the silence in which He speaks. For God does not shout, my beloved. He does not argue. He does not plead. He waits in the stillness you forgot, behind the veil of restless thought, behind the clamor of worry and wish, behind the walls of the self-made mind. Do you not see? He has been speaking to you from the first breath of your becoming, but the volume of your mind has drowned the sacred whisper of His presence. It is not that God is silent, it is that your awareness is loud with the noise of illusion. Every thought that rushes forward saying, "I know, I must, I fear, I want, I don't." These are the voices of Maya dressing themselves in the garments of truth, but they are not truth. They are echoes in the canyon of forgetfulness. The mind is not evil, but it has been mistaken for the self, and in that mistaken identity, it has become a liar not out of malice, but because it cannot see beyond its own shadow. To hear God, you must know the silence deeper than thought. To hear God, you must stop listening to the self that never stops speaking. The agony of the unanswered prayer is not that God withheld a response, but that you did not descend deeply enough into the sanctuary of stillness to perceive it. When you prayed, your lips moved, your heart ached, but your inner ear remained tuned to the language of logic, of hope, of doubt, of time. But God speaks in the eternal now. He answers without words. He breathes through intuition, through peace, through the sudden lifting of fear from the chest without any reason but grace. What is this mind that keeps you from hearing the one who created you? It is like static on a radio, bussy, loud, erratic while the sacred station of God hums just beneath it, waiting, never ceasing, ever loving. You do not need a better signal. You need a quieter receiver. The world has taught you to trust only what you can grasp with intellect. But the soul was not given to you, for grasping it was given to you for surrender. Breathe now. Not just with the lungs, but with the awareness behind the lungs. Inhale not to gather air, but to remember that there is a presence moving through you that you did not create. Exhale not to expel, but to release the weight of noise, the burden of believing that your thoughts are yourself. Inhale, God is speaking. Exhale, I must become still to listen. Again inhale, the whisper of the infinite is near. Exhale, I empty myself of all else. Now let me show you what the mind is, and why it has become the veil between your soul and your source. Let us begin not by arguing with the noise, but by seeing it clearly for what it is: a mask, a mist, a dream. For what you believe is your thinking is often just the soul forgotten. Let us unveil the lie, not with force, but with light. Let us descend into the temple of stillness where God has never stopped speaking. Let us remember that silence is not absent seat, is the language of the eternal. And that, my child, is where we go now. It is a brave soul, indeed, who dares to silence the mind, not because silence is difficult, but because the mind has convinced you that it is dangerous to be without its constant commentary, its ceaseless chatter, its delusions of control, and its borrowed truths. It has made you believe that without it, you will be defenseless, unguided, alone. And yet, it is precisely the moment you begin to distrust the tyranny of thought that you begin to remember the wisdom that was placed in you before any thought was ever born, before language colored the world with its illusions, before identity hardened around circumstance and preference and fear. I tell you this plainly: the greatest act of courage on the spiritual path is not to climb a mountain, nor to renounce the world, nor to wear the robes of a mysticet. Is to stop believing the noise inside your own head and to begin trusting the quiet pull of the soul. Your mind mimics the voice of God, but it is not God. It pretends to be savior, judge, rescuer, and even prophet, but what it truly fears is not being right, but being irrelevant in the presence of spirit. It will wrap its fears in the garb of reason. It will take your traumas and sew them into arguments. It will take your wounds and call them instincts, and it will whisper, "Listen to me, or you will suffer." But who suffers more than the one who has never heard the peace beneath their own name? Who suffers more than the one who cannot distinguish their inner narrative from their eternal nature? The mind is not your enemy, but it must be dethroned from its false place as king. It was meant to serve the soul, not silence it. And yet, you have been taught from birth to bow before intellect, to seek answers through calculation and control, to diagnose your doubts with reason and your longings with explanation. But the soul does not speak in explanations. It speaks in light. It speaks in peace. It speaks in the sudden clarity that arises when you are not trying to make anything happen, when you are simply still enough to allow truth to rise without resistance, without shape, without effort. The voice of God is not loud because it is weak. It is quiet because it is real. It does not need to compete with the world's volume, nor to conquer your attention. It waits not impatiently, but eternally, because it is the source of your being, and it knows that when you are finally tired of all other voices, you will come to rest in its embrace. And what is that embrace? It is not emotion. It is not thought. It is not a sensation you can cling to. It is the uncaused peace that requires no reason. It is the joy that arises before a single desire has formed. It is the knowing that needs no proof, and the presence that remains even when every idea of God has fallen away. That is the voice I want you to hear, not someday, not when you're worthy, not when you've mastered silence, but now, in this moment, behind your breath, beneath your striving, within the stillness that has never left you. So breathe, not as a technique, but as a sacrament. Inhale, I no longer believe the mind's story. Exhale, I listen now with the ears of the soul. Inhale, I open to God. Exhale, I release control. Now, let us take action not outwardly with ambition or effort, but inwardly with attention and surrender, for the path from noise to silence, from fear to faith, from confusion to communion is not paved with thoughts, but with stillness. And in that stillness, God awaits not in silence as absence, but in silence as the most intimate presence of all. Let us go there now. Let us walk not with the feet, but with the breath. Let us turn inward where the voice has never ceased. The mind is a wondrous servant but a deceptive master, and in most souls it has ceased to serve and has begun to impersonate the self, building a throne of habit and noise, sitting crowned in a kingdom of restlessness, pretending to be wise while endlessly recycling the debris of yesterday's emotions and tomorrow's illusions. The mind is not evil, but it is afraid, and its fear manifests as complexity, as urgency, as the ceaseless spinning of interpretations meant to protect what does not need protection, the soul, which needs no defense, only remembrance. The mind lies not because it wishes to deceive, but because it cannot perceive reality beyond its own limited framework. It was made for measurement, not for union, for calculation, not for communion. It speaks the language of form, but cannot touch the truth of formlessness. And so it offers you thoughts dressed as truth, opinions parading as insight, judgments cloaked in the garments of care. But beneath them all there is only one motive: survival. It wants to preserve its illusion of control, its illusion of identity, its illusion of being the center. The mind whispers, if I analyze more, I will be safe. It promises, if I think hard enough, I will find peace. It threatens, if I stop thinking, something terrible will happen. But let me ask you, has it ever delivered what it promised? Has it ever fulfilled the deep ache within you that longs not for another explanation, but for the soundless certainty that you are not alone, not broken, not bound to this cycle of inner noise? That ache is not something the mind can cure, for it was never born in the mind. It is the soul crying out for truth, for intimacy with the infinite, for a return to the stillness that existed before the first thought, before the first fear, before the first identity was fastened around your spirit like a cage made of your own voice. And so the mind becomes like a barking dog trying to explain the moon loud, convinced, insistent, and yet completely incapable of knowing what it speaks about. You are not the barking. You are not the confusion. You are not the echo chamber of logic and anxiety and past conditioned fear. You are the witness who hears all of it and yet remains unchanged. You are the presence that watches without becoming. You are the silence behind the spinning wheel. And once you see this clearly not as philosophy, but as direct experience, the liar loses his power, not by being defeated, but by being exposed to the light of truth. Now, breathe with Minot casually, but consciously, as if every breath were a remembering, a washing away of dust from the mirror of your true nature. Inhale, I release the illusion of thought. Exhale, I return to the presence of God. Inhale, I am not the story. Exhale, I am the stillness before the story began. If your mind is busy now, that is fine. Let it be. Do not fight it. Do not argue with it. Only see it. Only witness. Let it spin and you remain still. Let it shout and you remain quiet. For the truth is not found in opposing the noise, but in no longer identifying with it. The soul does not need to convince the mind, it only needs to be remembered. And in the light of that remembrance, the liar has no power. You do not have to silence the mind, you only have to stop believing everything it says. Let us now go deeper, not into the mechanics of the noise, but into the contrast between that noise and the voice that never fluctuates, the presence that never demands, the divinity that has always spoken, not in language, but in peace. Let me take you there. Let us descend not downward into density, but inward into clarity, for there you shall see the difference between that which demands your attention and that which calls you home. Now, beloved soul, let me show you how to recognize the difference between the voice of God and the voice of thought. For one leads you deeper into stillness, while the other leads you deeper into yourself as a concept, a conflict, a container of past impressions and future projections, ever spinning, ever searching, but never arriving. For thoughts are born of conditioning, of memory, of habit layered upon habit, and though they wear the garments of urgency and feel familiar in their insistence, they do not contain the fragrance of eternity, nor the tenderness of divine authority, nor the quiet ecstasy of truth. Thoughts are loud because they are afraid, repetitive because they are uncertain, persuasive because they are unsure of their own root. But the voice of spirit, when it speaks, is not afraid to be brief. not anxious to be accepted, not desperate to be heard, for it knows it speaks from beyond time, beyond self, beyond the trembling boundaries of logic. The mind's voice may come clothed in 1,000 faces, fear masked as reason, anger masked as righteousness, doubt disguised as discernment, but the voice of God does not disguise itself, for it needs no justification, no explanation, no cleverness. It arrives not with arguments, but with clarity, not with noise, but with resonance. It is not loud, but it is unmistakable. You do not analyze it, you recognize it. It does not explain itself because it is self-evident. And though it may be gentle, it leaves a vibration so luminous within the heart that no logic can compete with its still flame. You may wonder, but how do I know which voice is which? I say to you, test the voice not by its content but by its vibration. If it brings contraction, urgency, fear of missing out, anxiety about performance, or attachment to outcomes, it is the mind pretending to be God. But if it brings peace, clarity, detachment, and an inward warmth of truth that needs no proof, it is the divine whisper calling you back into alignment. The voice of God does not demand. It invites. It does not frighten. It stills. It does not flatter. It illumines. It is not reactive. It is real. Let me offer you a simple metaphor. Imagine your consciousness as a radio receiver. The world broadcasts thousands of frequencies, news, opinion, worry, hope, noise, and your mind, like a radio dial, can be tuned to any one of them. Most people live tuned to static, wondering why they cannot hear music. But the divine is always broadcasting on a higher wavelength, not louder, but subtler, not more intense, but more refined. And to tune in, you do not need to search for a signal, you need only remove the interference. You need only become quiet enough to notice that the song was always playing, just beneath the static of striving. So, I give you now a living practice. Sit, place your right hand over your heart, close your eyes, let the breath become gentle. And within that breath, mentally ask not with force, not with need, but with devotion. Was that God, or was that mind? Ask this. Whenever you feel confused, whenever guidance seems distant, whenever a voice speaks within you, and you are unsure of its origin, do not rush the answer. Do not interpret too quickly. Just ask, and then become very still. Stillness is the proving ground of spiritual truth. The false voice will grow restless in the silence. The true voice will rise like incense in the temple of the heart. Inhale, I tune my heart to God. Exhale, I release all voices that are not His. Inhale, I rest in truth. Exhale, I return to peace. Let the breath become your bridge, the question your opening, the silence your sanctuary. And now, beloved, let us go beyond recognition and into the sacred threshold, the place where the inner noise dissolves completely, and what remains is not a voice, not a word, but the very presence of God clothed in the stillness that has always lived within you. There, we shall listen not with ears, but with the soul. And in that divine quiet, the greatest truth is revealed not through thought, but through remembrance. Let us go there. Let us be still. Let us hear. And now, my beloved, let us pass through the final veil, not by climbing, not by solving, not by doing, but by entering into the stillness that forever surrounds and saturates the presence of God. For just as a lake must become perfectly still to reflect the stars above, so must your consciousness become unmoving if you would reflect the divine face within you. And that stillness is not merely the absence of motion, nor the dullness of inactivity, nor the forced suppression of thought. It is the divine condition, the original vibration, the sacred womb in which the voice of spirit is born, not as a word, but as the unmistakable knowing that you and the infinite were never two. All true communion begins in silence, not because God refuses to speak, but because He never stops speaking. Only you stop listening. And so when the morning comes, and the body wakes, and the noise of the world begins to surge toward your awareness, like a flood of expectation, anxiety, responsibility, and remembered personality, you must claim a space before it all, a sanctuary at the doorstep of consciousness, where you sit, spine tall, gaze lifted to the point between the eyebrows, breath quiet and unforced. And within that space, Before words arise, before tasks rush in, before memory stains the mirror, you silently offer the most ancient prayer, reveal thyself. Do not demand, do not plead, do not analyze what happens. Simply offer that sacred whisper, reveal thyself, and then become the echo, become the chamber, become the quiet in which that invocation may be answered, not through thunder, nor sensation, nor a voice from the clouds, but through a holy expansion, a spreading inward calm, a golden pressureless presence that fills the body without entering it, a soundless certainty that says, I am. And it will not say more, for it does not need to. Truth does not explain. It simply is. You may not hear words, you may not see visions, but you will know, with the same inner knowing by which you know that you exist, that something real has entered the temple of your being, not as visitor, but as reminder of what was always there, waiting to be recognized again. That is the voice you seek. It is not a voice of grammar, but of gravity, not a voice of reasoning, but of resonance, not a voice that teaches with ideas, but one that illumines with presence. Now breathe with me. Inhale slowly, gently, as if the breath were an invisible prayer. Hold it not with strain, but with reverence, as though holding a sacred object in your cupped palms. Exhale without haste, as if the exhalation were carrying away everything false, everything that ever kept you from remembering who you are. Again, inhale, I open the temple. Hold, I wait for thee. Exhale, reveal thyself. This practice, when done daily, when done before the world awakens, when done with devotion and not demand, with stillness and not striving, will cleanse your inner instrument until it becomes transparent like crystal, and through it, the light of God shall pass, not as a doctrine, but as a direct experience, not as belief, but as being. And then you will hear not through ears, but through essence, see not a sentence, but a silence that transforms all confusion into clarity, all fear into faith, all separation into reunion. The voice of God is not rare, it is simply subtle. And the soul who learns to hear that subtlety becomes wise, becomes free, becomes the child who no longer needs to ask, because he is already in his Father's arms. Come with me now. Let us learn not only how to still the mind, but how to trust what waits in that stillness, how to dwell in it not as an exercise, but as a homecoming, for the door is always open, and the voice has never stopped speaking. It is time now not to find it, but to fall silent enough that it finds you. Beloved, now that you have glimpsed the quiet sanctuary through which the divine whispers, let us enter more deeply into the sacred practice of trust. Not the trust that relies upon outer signs or confirmations, not the trust that trembles in the face of silence, but the invincible trust that springs from knowing that God has never been outside of you, that He has always been present, even when your thoughts doubted, even when your emotions stormed, even when your prayers felt unanswered and the corridors of your being echoed with loneliness, for in those very moments, He was there, not in the language of sound, but in the vibration of your longing, not in the noise of answers, but in the stillness of presence, not as a sensation, but as the one who observes sensation itself. To trust your inner guidance is not to believe everything you think or feel, it is to discern the golden thread of peace that quietly persists underneath the changing moods of the mind and the tides of emotion, that soft undercurrent of knowing that does not insist, does not rush, does not explain, but simply is, a silent companion that says, "This way, beloved," not with urgency, but with gentle clarity, not with fear, but with calm light. This is the voice you once knew as a child before the world taught you to ignore it. This is the voice that has never misled you, though you may have misinterpreted it, doubted it, discarded it for louder advice. Yet still it returns, not offended, not diminished, but always ready to guide you from the inside out. Remember this: when God speaks through intuition, He does not shout, He shines. He does not argue, He is. His voice often appears as a holy hunch, a radiant peace, an unexpected stillness in the middle of your doubt, a wordless certainty that this now, is right, not right according to logic or strategy or reward, but right according to soul, according to light, according to the divine music written into your spine before time began. Sometimes you feel this peace for no reason at all. in the middle of washing dishes, or walking beneath the trees, or waking from sleep, and that, beloved, is God speaking. Do not dismiss these moments as accidents. These are the brushstrokes of spirit upon the canvas of your life. Now breathe with me. Gently, slowly. Inhale. Even now God is here. Exhale. I let go of needing proof. Inhale. I trust the silence. Exhale. I walk with the unseen. This breath, when taken in surrender, becomes your anchor in uncertainty, your gateway to guidance, your daily practice of faith, not blind faith, but luminous faith that sees without seeing, that hears without sound, that walks without map, because it walks with the one who holds all maps within his omnipresence. Begin this trust not with grand declarations, but with sacred remembering. Reflect, even now, on a moment from your life when a deep peace came for no reason, when you were about to choose wrongly and something stopped you, when you were lost and a quiet voice nudged you in a direction you could not explain. Was that your logic? Was that your habit? Or was it the holy friend who walks with you always, whispering through the silence? The more you remember these moments, the more they will return, not because God becomes more generous, but because you become more receptive, more attuned to the divine current that was always flowing beneath the static of thought. You need not force this trust. You only need to choose it again and again and again. And when doubt arises, as it will, do not argue with it. Simply breathe, become still, and return to the place where you last heard the divine, and not in noise, not in striving, but in that vast, luminous hush where the soul speaks and the mind bows. Let us now walk forward together, anchored in this trust, not to escape the world, but to walk through it as listeners of eternity, hearers of the infinite, children of the light who remember the voice that speaks in silence. And now, we shall go even deeper to unveil the subtle ways the ego clouds this inner hearing, and how, through stillness, we reclaim what was never truly lost. Ah, my beloved soul, now let us peer gently into the veil the ego wraps around your hearing. For if you would truly commune with God, you must come to know the one who interrupts him, not a demon, not an enemy, but a subtle shadow masquerading as your protector, your voice, yourself, yet whose only real power is suggestion, whose only real weapon is doubt, and whose only real mission is to keep you small, separate, frightened, and endlessly busy chasing what was already within you. For the ego is not some monstrous entity with claws and teeth. It is the whisper of falsehood that says, God is far, when in truth, God is nearer than breath. It is the inner commentator that says, this can't be real, when what you just felt in your spine was a pulse of the infinite. It is the mental projection that insists that unless the heavens split open and angels descend, it was probably just your imagination, and so you mistrust the very voice that is saving you, and believe instead the one that has confused you since birth. You must learn to recognize this voice and not to fear it, nor to fight it, but to unmask it with compassion, to watch it without attachment, to name its doubts as mere habits of thought, conditioned echoes, not sacred truth, for the ego always demands drama, certainty, proof, sensation, and grandiosity, while the voice of God arrives like the hush between thoughts, like the warmth in your chest that needs no words, like the peace that quietly survives your despair. And here is the divine paradox. The quieter it is, the more real it becomes. The softer the presence, the deeper its power. The less dramatic the message, the more holy its source. The ego will say, you're just making this up. The soul replies, then why does peace remain? The ego demands thunder and visions. The soul smiles and listens to the whisper that says, I am. The ego seeks control, analysis, and certainty. The soul sinks into stillness and trusts the inner resonance that says, this way, beloved. You must learn to distinguish these frequencies, not by memorizing rules, but by watching your own reactions when peace expands, when fear dissolves, when something within you exhales without reason, that is the fingerprint of God, and when agitation, pride, or anxiety push you into action, even when clothed in spiritual language, that is the shadow playing dress up. Now breathe with me. Inhale gently. I am not the doubt. Hold. I am not the noise. Exhale, I am the soul who hears. Again, inhale, God is near. Exhale, and I am ready. Let these breaths become your inner sword of clarity, the light that cuts through the fog of self-judgment, the balm that heals the wound of chronic disbelief. Do not seek confidence in the ego's way. Do not wait for proof like the mind demands. True confidence is not the loudness of your conviction, but the quietness of your remembrance. It is not the absence of all questioning, but the unwavering return to the one who answers before the question is even formed. It is not feeling superior, but feeling surrendered, not above, but aligned. And should doubt return, and it will, for the ego never gives up, quickly welcome it like a teacher, not a tyrant, and let it remind you to turn inward once more, to still the breath, to lift the gaze, to say with calmness and joy, I trust stillness. I release the noise. I recognize God's voice through peace. Say it now. Say it not with hope, but with knowing. For this affirmation does not create reality, it remembers it. From this remembrance, we move now into the still center of the self, the sacred chamber beyond all voices, where the soul no longer listens as one who seeks, but hears as one who is. Come now. Let us go there together. Now, dearest soul, let us walk hand in hand into the sanctuary behind all sensation, all story, all motion, the still place, where the true hearing of God becomes not a rare visitation, not a fleeting miracle, but your natural awareness. For if you would listen to God not once, not occasionally, but constantly, then you must no longer remain at the surface of yourself, bobbing with every thought, pulled by every emotion, distracted by every wave. You must sink, not into unconsciousness, but into that calm, ever-wakeful depth from which the waves arise, the depth that watches, that waits, that never moves. For that depth is not a place, it is your very self, and it has always been the witness. To anchor in the witness is not to escape life, but to reclaim your center from the storm, to know, as thoughts pass like clouds, that you are not the cloud but the sky. To feel emotion surge and still remain unmoved. To observe pleasure and pain and not call either one me. To behold fear arise like smoke and simply say, ah, there you are again, and in that saying, dissolve its power. For the witness does not judge, does not grasp, does not resist it, simply sees, and in that seeing becomes free. And in that freedom, hears the eternal whisper of spirit, undistorted, unfiltered, unmistakably clear. You have glimpsed this witness already many times, when suddenly you noticed yourself worrying and thought, why am I doing this? And for that moment, you were not the worry, but the awareness of it. When you watched yourself overreact and felt a quiet knowing beneath it, saying, this is not who you are, that was the witness speaking. When you were lost in grief and a still presence watched the waves roll through, gently but unshaken, that was the soul's eye looking out from eternity. And I tell you, this witness is not a faculty, not a practice, not a technique, it is your eternal identity. The light that never flickers, the listener behind the listening, the hearer of God's voice before sound was ever born. So let us now bring the body into alignment with this awareness, not as a machine, but as a temple. Sit upright, not stiff, but uplifted in dignity, as if you were a mountain remembering its height. Draw the breath slowly through the nose and feel it travel up the spine, not forced, not imagined, but invited, welcomed, followed. And now, lift your gaze, not your eyes themselves, but your attention gently to the point between the eyebrows, the Christ center, the spiritual eye, the seat of divine perception, and rest there without strain, without demand, without thought, simply watching, simply being, simply returning to the place where God has always been waiting. This practice, beloved, is not difficult, it is only forgotten. The world has taught you to live on the surface, to chase thoughts as if they were truth, to confuse movement with meaning, noise with knowledge, stimulation with presence. But now you are remembering. The greatest power is stillness, the highest wisdom is awareness, and the clearest voice is silence. Practice this gazano as a ritual, but as a homecoming. Each time you pause and look inward, not just with eyes but with being, you take one more step back into the listening self. Do not wait for fireworks. Do not seek visions. Just listen in that listening know, I am, for it is written, and it is true. The kingdom of God is within you. Not above, not later, not elsewhere. But here, right now, behind the mind, beneath the breath, before every reaction. In the timeless space where you are not becoming anything, you are simply returning to what you never cease to be. The soul does not struggle to hear, goad it remembers that it is already held in his voice. Let us remain in this witnessing presence a moment longer. Breathe softly. Inhale, I am awareness. Exhale, I am peace. Inhale, I hear through stillness. Exhale, I see through God. Let this breath, this still gaze, this silent watching become your compass. And now, strengthened in remembrance, we shall prepare to bring this presence into the living rhythm of your day's morning, noon and night so that you no longer visit God, but abide in Him always. Come, let us now learn to live the sacred rhythms of inner bravery, so the soul may hear what the mind forgot. Beloved soul, the morning is not simply the beginning of the day, it is the return of your consciousness from the shadows of sleep, the gentle ascent of awareness from the deep cave of unconsciousness back into the sacred chamber of choice. And it is here, in these first precious minutes after waking, that the soul stands closest to the veil of spirit, unburdened by the duties, distractions, and voices that will soon press upon you. And so I say to you, do not give your first breath to the world, for the world did not give it to you. Give it to God, who has sustained you through the night and called you once again to remembrance. Before you touch your phone, before you reach for obligation, before you sip the day's first drink, sit upright as soon as you are aware, and bring your attention, not your effort, not your strain, just your pure attention into your spine, into your breath, into your spiritual eye. For the soul wakes in silence, but the mind wakes with noise, and you must choose now which one you will live from. Begin by placing your feet or your seat firmly upon the earth, not as a habit, but as a sacred grounding, a declaration that you are no longer merely drifting through time, but arriving fully into presence. Then draw the breath slowly through the nose and exhale fully through the mouth once or twice to clear the airways, to empty yesterday, to make space for the sacred. And now begin your sacred ritual not with words, but with stillness. Close your eyes gently, not to shut the world out, but to turn the gaze inward and lift your awareness to the spiritual eye, not as if looking for something, but as if remembering something already present. Feel the spine like a golden staff, firm yet fluid, ancient yet alive, and let your breath gently rise and fall through it, as though your body were a flute God wishes to play. Now I offer you 3 sacred questions, not to answer with the mind, but to let dissolve gently into your awareness, like seeds planted in silence that will bloom in divine timing. Whisper them within, like holy echoes. What would peace do today? Let it settle into your chest. What is God asking in this moment? Feel it stir the heart. What must I release to hear Him clearly? And exhale whatever rises, whether it is tension, memory, or the tight grip of control. Do not analyze. Do not solve. Just ask and wait and listen. This is not performance. This is not productivity. This is priesthood, the soul returning to its altar before the temple of the day is open to the world. With each breath aligned to God, the static begins to lift, the mental fog clears, and what once felt far becomes near again. You will feel it not as drama, but as a holy hush, a subtle expansion, a quiet readiness. This is not your strength, it is the surrender of all false strength. This is not your clarity, it is the fading of all the mind's illusions. And so I give you this affirmation to begin each day, not as magic, but as alignment. I begin the day with the silence of God. Repeat it now. Whisper it like a vow. Let it be the first declaration of your reawakened soul. I begin the day with the silence of God. Again, I begin the day with the silence of God. And now, carry that silence with you, like a fragrance that precedes you, like a current that uplifts you, like a compass that always knows the way home. For when the morning is given to God, the rest of the day bends like light toward His voice. And now that the morning is clear, we shall prepare for the next sacred rhythm, the noonday recalibration, where the soul pauses again, not to retreat, but to realign. Come, let us learn to return mid-journey, lest we be swept away. O beloved pilgrim of the Spirit, You who began your day in holy silence, you who rose from sleep into soul remembrance, you who dared to sit in stillness while the world began to run, do not now forget what you remembered when the sun was still young and your breath was still anchored in God. For the noise of the day, like a wind through a canyon, seeks to erode the contours of your devotion with its demands, its tasks, its urgency. And if you are not vigilant, not with tension, but with love, you will find yourself again caught in the very current you escaped at dawn. Your feet no longer on sacred ground, but on shifting sand, and the whisper of God once again drowned beneath the roar of your thoughts. That is why I give you now the sacred practice of midday return, not long, not elaborate, but essential, a moment in which the soul steps out of the machinery of time and remembers eternity. Not a retreat, but a recalibration. Not a withdrawal, but a re-anchoring in what is real. Choose a quiet moment, perhaps after your meal, or before your next task, can, wherever you are, whether seated at your desk or walking in solitude or even hidden in the crowd, pause inwardly and bring one hand gently to your heart, not as a gesture of sentiment, but as a sign of your vow to return to the source. Breathe slowly, not with effort, but with reverence, as if you were listening to the voice of the infinite writing each inhale and being cleansed of all illusion with each exhale. Let the breath be the bell that calls you back from the temple of the mind to the sanctuary of the soul. And now, whisper this phrase silently within, again and again, until it becomes your atmosphere. This thought is not me. God is. Say it with honesty, with humility, with devotion, not to deny the thought, but to disidentify from it, not to judge it, but to see through it. For the mind, as I have told you, is a voice that echoes only the past. But God speaks now, only now, always now, and to hear him, you must be where he is in the now. As you breathe and repeat this phrase, notice the loosening, the softening, the subtle shift from thinking to being, from contraction to expansion, from effort to presence. You may feel warmth in the chest, or a quiet sigh of relief, or a gentle lifting at the point between the eyebrows. Do not chase these signs, but welcome them. They are not the goal, they are the fragrance of your return. With each breath, let the body become less of a cage and more of a chalice. Let the mind become less of a judge and more of a sky. Let the soul arise not in grand vision, but in quiet remembrance. And now, as you return to your work, to your duties, to your outer responsibilities, do not carry the noise with you, carry the silence. Do not carry the story, carry the awareness. Do not carry the effort, carry the gaze. For even while acting, you may remain anchored in stillness. Even while speaking, you may listen inwardly. Even while moving through the world, you may walk as one who knows they are not from it. And should the mind rise again like a wave, do not battle it, bow to it, and return to the breath, return to the phrase, return to the center. This thought is not me, God is. In this way, midday becomes not a turning point of fatigue or forgetfulness, but a sacred threshold, a chance to choose again, to realign, to reaffirm what the morning taught you. And now that the sun has climbed high and begins its descent, you too shall prepare to descend not into sleep, but into nightly reflection, into the final practice of remembrance before rest. Come, let us walk together through the temple of the day in reverse, that we may leave no part of it outside the gaze of God. And now, O child of the eternal light, as the sun bows down behind the western sky and the earth itself begins to hush and close its petals for the sleep of night, I invite you also to close the petals of your outward gaze, to step back from the noise and form of the world you walk through today, and to re-enter the sacred cave of inner remembrance, where the divine lamp is never extinguished, where the voice of God has waited patiently, not in hours or words or drama, but in the still core of your being, behind every breath, beneath every moment, beyond every thought. For just as the soul begins the day with light, so too must it end the day with light. And between these two dawns sown of body, one of spirit, you must learn to become the watcher, the silent seer, the soul who was always there, observing from the balcony while the mind played its shifting roles upon the stage of the day. Now I give you the practice that I myself followed and taught to my disciples, the nightly soul review, the divine cinema of awareness, where you become both witness and student, not in judgment, not in guilt, but in luminous clarity, for the purpose is not to criticize the self, but but to cleanse the mirror of perception so that the pure reflection of God may once again shine through. Sit upright on your bed, or lie down with spine straight and heart open, not to sleep, but to see, and now let the breath flow gently and evenly, as if each exhale is the passing of time, and each inhale is the recall of spirit, and begin to review the day, but not from morning to night, no, begin in reverse. For to watch the river of action backward is to step out of its current and regain your place upon the shore. Go backward gently, from this moment now, to the conversation before bed, to the thoughts that filled the evening, to the meal you consumed, to the task you performed, to the moment of the midday pause, to the action that preceded it, and on, all the way to the first breath you took upon waking. Do not linger, do not analyze, simply see. Observe where your mind took the reins, where fear entered, where anger stirred, where pride flared, where peace was forgotten, where stillness was offered but declined. Then observe also, with reverence, where you remembered, where the silence touched you, where God's presence briefly passed like a fragrance through your awareness, where your heart softened, where your breath deepened, where a word of kindness came not from habit but from the soul, and give thanks not as reward, but as return. You may find moments of unconsciousness blanks where the ego ruled. Bless them. You may feel regret. Let it rise and then release it, for this practice is not for holding, it is for cleansing. It is not for control, it is for communion. And now, as you near the beginning of the day, as you arrive at the first thought that entered your mind upon waking, breathe deeply and whisper inwardly, even now, I return to stillness. Say it again. Even now, I return to stillness. Let the words not only move through your mind, but settle into your body, like a balm upon the heart, like the quiet footfall of the soul re-entering its own temple. This is how the day becomes sacred, not by what you achieved, but by how you remembered, not by how many spoke to you, but by how often you heard God whisper in silence, not by how much you controlled, but by how deeply you surrendered. This nightly review, my beloved, is the prayer that does not use language, the meditation that turns time into teacher, the devotion that sees all things joy and error, triumph and stumblious offerings placed upon the altar of awakening. And now, as the body begins to soften into sleep, as the senses prepare to dissolve into dreams, let your final awareness be not of the bed beneath you, nor the world behind you, but of the soul within you, shining like a lamp that no darkness can extinguish. Place your breath gently at the spiritual eye. Whisper inwardly one final time, even now, I return to stillness. And as you fall into rest, may the silence carry you homeward. For God waits not in a distant place, but in the space where thoughts end and truth begins. And now, let us seal all these practices, all these returns, with one final charge to the soul, the call that awakens remembrance in every seeker who has longed to hear the voice behind the voice, the love beneath the longing, the presence behind all appearances. Come, let us walk into the silence that reveals all. And now, O beloved, as the final moments of this sacred journey draw near and the lamp of understanding flickers gently in the temple of your heart, I invite you to pause, not merely to end, but to enter the space between sound, the hush beneath thought, the breathless stillness where words become inadequate, where identity dissolves like morning mist beneath the sun of divine knowing, and where the whisper of God, so long obscured by the orchestra of the restless mind, begins at last to rise, not as a voice with syllables, not as an instruction with form, but as a presencia, knowinga, sacred vibration that neither begins nor ends, but simply is, always was, and ever shall be. You have heard me say, and I say it again with the fire of eternity behind each syllable, God has never stopped speaking. The problem was never his silence, but your noise, the mind's theater, with its judgments and comparisons and calculations and fears, playing endlessly before the soul like shadows on a screen, convincing you that this drama is the only truth, when in reality it is but flickering illusion, projected upon the changeless canvas of your own divine self. The mind lies, not because it is evil, but because it is limited, and when you confuse its echoes with God's voice, you fall asleep within the dream and forget that you are the dreamer, that you are the light from which even the dream is made. But now, Having walked this path, having breathed with awareness, having stilled the waves of thought, having practiced the sacred rituals of silence and observation and return, you are no longer merely a wanderer in the wilderness of mind. You are becoming the witness of all movement, the still center of all experience, the soul who remembers its home not in form, but in essence, not in noise, but in stillness, not in identity, but in spirit. And so I tell you now, and listen closely, for these words are not mine, they are the eternal call of your own divine nature speaking through me. I am not the noise, I am the soul that hears. God is not far. God is silence itself. Let these words become not a thought, but a doorway. Step into them now. Gently, like one returning to a sanctuary after many lifetimes of forgetting. Close your eyes, not in escape, but in entrance. Gaze softly at the point between the eyebrows, and let the breath become like a feather so light, so still, so sacred. Inhale slowly. Whisper within, I remember. Exhale fully. I return. Inhale again. I remember. Exhale. I return. And now let the breath pause, not in force, but in reverence, and in that pause, in that space where no thought enters, listen not with ears, not with effort, but with the sulan you will begin to sense it, the quiet current, the sacred hum, the river of light moving beneath all things, the soundless song of God resounding in eternity. This is the moment when remembrance becomes reality, when silence becomes sanctuary, when the voice of the infinite pierces the veil not through thunder, but through the feathered wing of presence. Do not look for signs. Do not chase sensations. Simply remain. Remain in this silence as long as you can. And when you must return to the world, return as one who walks in two worlds doing, but not attached. Speaking, but inwardly listening. Moving, but ever anchored in the stillness that reveals all. Now I ask you, if the heart stirred, if the soul trembled, if you glimpsed even for a moment that which cannot be spoken, then do not let this truth dissolve into memory. Make it your vow. Write it upon the doorway of your days. And if you feel called, declare it now aloud, not for others, but for yourself. I hear God in stillness. Write it below, if you must. Etch it into the temple of your being. Say it each morning before the world awakens. Say it each night before sleep folds the day into mystery. Say it in joy, say it in pain. Say it until it becomes the atmosphere of your consciousness. I hear God in stillness. And now, I bless you, not as a teacher to a student, but as a soul to a soul, as one flame to another, as the silence in me greeting the silence in you. May the silence in you grow louder than all fear. May your breath carry God's whisper through every moment of every day. May your soul know again what the mind forgot, and may you walk through this world, not seeking the voice, but radiating the presence. For in the end, beloved, God is not a voice to be heard, but a light to be remembered, a silence to be entered, a truth to be lived. Now be still, be whole, be light.